Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studios. We continue to celebrate so many amazing people who are working to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. And we're also working to raise the bar for Mississippi, especially coastal Mississippi. So thank you for joining us. Listen, had a great visit on the show yesterday with Woody Bailey. And, most of you know Woody, but he's the executive director for Cruising the Coast. They already have 200 more cars registered than they did this same time last year. It's exciting to see that they're probably going to hit a record this year. We talked about every single city, including Diamond Head, that's involved in Cruising the Coast, which is just, I think, a great example of what happens when we work together. I also read at the beginning of that show, you can go read it yourself, or you can go to that show at the Ricky Matthews Show or at SuperTalk Mississippi and watch the show. But my recent column on why I'm so locked onto the coastal Mississippi, Coast Mississippi's big moment, this notion of forming an economic development alliance. I really encourage you to go look at that at supertalk.fm. You can see my other columns there as well. Today we're gonna chat with Hunter Dawkins from the Gazebo Gazette, and Kyle's going to join us for a couple of minutes. But I wanted to share something with you that I think is super important. You probably saw in the news where the U.S. Space Command headquarters are going to be relocated from Colorado to Huntsville. But you say, okay, that's important and big news and so on. But you may not be fully aware of what's happening in Huntsville. And I wanted to just take a minute and share this with you, because this is something that I've been super, super locked on to since I was in Alabama. I had responsibilities of a Huntsville newspaper, and we actually published the Redstone Arsenal newspaper actually on the base there. Just like when I was at the Sun Herald, we published the Keesler News and CB Courier. So I spent a lot of time not only on the base, but in Huntsville, taking it all in, this incredible economic development mission that they were on. At the time, they had this thing called the Group of 100 or something like that, and it was an annual fly-in to Washington, D.C., and they never had less than 100 people who were involved in it. And what I did is I was preparing for today's show. I wanted to see kind of where's that effort? Are they still doing that? Because I remember at the time, it was one of the most significant type fly-ins like it in the country. Well, it's the Huntsville-Madison County Chamber of Commerce. And it is an annual D.C. trip, but more recently, it had somewhere between 175 and 200 business leaders and civic leaders who were there to talk about the defense industry, aerospace, infrastructure, all the things that a community like theirs should be focused on. All this incredible development that's happening on Redstone Arsenal, and of course, obviously, that effort led to the Space Command relocation there. There's a strong history here, and you can go read about it, but I'm just going to hit a couple of the high points here. This economic effort really started post World War II. There was, they had a great Senator John Sparkman, who relocated 1,000 German scientists there, including, in fact, Wernher von Braun. And one of the things they focused on was rocket development. They went on and laid the groundwork for NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, other major advancements in space exploration. Today, the Redstone Arsenal and the related facilities, if you drive through there, there's a lot. It feels a little bit like a much larger version of Stennis. I think Stennis could be our Redstone Arsenal, but there are 44,000 people there in the defense and missile systems. There's a kind of a stable economic anchor there that's made them very resilient through downturns, and they've attracted extremely high-paying jobs. And in more recent developments, you have the FBI growing from 860 to 3,400 jobs there, and then, of course, the 1,600 positions that are part of the U.S. Space Command. They've attracted major companies to Huntsville. Look, notable examples are a $2.3 billion Toyota Mazda plant employing 4,000 people in UV manufacturing. Jeff Bezos built a $200 million Blue Horizon rocket center there. Facebook built a $1 billion data center with over 200 jobs. A $600 million Google data center was built there with 100 jobs. Amazon, 1 million square feet fulfillment center with 500 jobs. I mean, this list goes on and on. The amount of investments has been truly remarkable. If you look at the Cummings Research Park there, the second largest in the U.S., hosts over 320 companies, including 25 biotech firms and 47 Fortune 500 operations. And it's the ecosystem for entrepreneurial development and further investments continues to snowball. High-skilled and diverse workforce. I could go into great detail about that. What the state has done, similar to what Mississippi has done, to build a business-friendly environment when it comes to policies and incentives. You got a great quality of life there. It's still, thank goodness, still affordable. You've got robust infrastructure and diversification, a continued focus on diversification. But overall, Huntsville's success stems from leveraging its Rocket City heritage and being very proactive with diversifying and investing in its people and infrastructure. And it's a story to be told. And it's what I think coastal Mississippi should be doing regionally. We've got Stennis Space Center and the huge opportunities to grow there. We have everything they have and more. And this is what happens when you're focused. So when I was in Alabama and spent my time in Huntsville, I saw what the group of 100 was doing. To see that it's now 175 to 200 people visiting D.C. simultaneously and the great success that they've had. Just one more example, like Savannah, like Northwest Florida, like Northeast Mississippi. What happens when you bring your region together and focus on economic success and diversification and dream big, and then have pushers, leaders who are pushing, mayors, supervisors, city council people, the private sector, the business council, the chambers, all pushing together to bring together an effort that gives us the opportunity to focus on the big stuff. What's happening in Huntsville could happen here. I just wish we would grab it and run with it. Okay, now let's move over to my friend Hunter Dawkins, the jack of all trades, the owner and publisher of the Gazebo Gazette here in coastal Mississippi, and my friend Cal Curley, the producer of this show. How you guys doing?
Doing well, Ricky. Thank you very much.
Hey, did you have any idea? Yeah, thanks. Hey, did y'all have any idea Huntsville was doing that? Now, Brett, haven't you been to Huntsville recently, Cal, in soccer or something like that?
We, through baseball, went up there. My immediate reaction is they're going to lose their proximity to Area 51, so that's going to create a problem.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's amazing what's happening there, isn't it, when you were there just driving around?
Oh, yeah, it's built up a lot over the past 10, 15 years. So, yeah, kudos to them. They get their act together, and here we are.
Yeah, here. Hey, did you have any idea, Hunter, that Huntsville had done that?
Previously, about 15 years ago, when I actually lived right north of Chattanooga, Tennessee, for just a brief period of time, that was sort of the time they were developing, even to, like you spoke about, Ricky, to building up their groundwork at least. And they had really started to develop into the whole idea of the Rocket City. And I knew that something was going on. I didn't really pay quite as much of attention as I probably should have, because I was teaching at the time, and that could have been a better avenue for a teaching job, but then I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. But I would certainly agree with you that they have gone light years ahead of the opportunity in Alabama that's available. And that, actually, speaking of politically, that's also why I believe Alabama gained another congressional seat, too, for that as well. So,
yeah, I mean, it's incredible. The growth in population has been off the charts. I'm just looking here to see if I actually have that. I know I have it somewhere. I took a lot of notes when I was reading about kind of where they are and all this, but I'm not immediately seeing it. But one of the interesting things is when I was in Alabama, one of the reasons why it was a bit of a struggle at times is that, what I learned is that when you have the CEOs that are located in your community, then you can really make a lot of things happen. We have a lot of CEOs of the major companies actually located here, from Ingalls and Mississippi Power and so on. Certainly Hancock Whitney. When your CEO is located somewhere else, it makes it a little harder. It's like in Mobile, most of the CEOs were located in Birmingham. So Alabama tended to be very Birmingham centric. And except for Huntsville decided early on that it was going to think of itself as its own state. I mean, it's almost like they're not part of Alabama. They went about it. They said, okay, if you want to help us, you can, but we're going at this full bore. And as our tide rises, it's going to rise the tide of all of Alabama. And it's really played out that way. So interesting that it happened that way. But I was there to see it for myself, and it's an amazing story. And I was blown away when I look back. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Hunter and Kyle. We'll talk about, what's going on in the sports arena these days. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day. We're visiting with Hunter Dawkins from the Gazebo Gazette here in Coastal Mississippi. And my friend Cal Curley, my partner in crime. He's been here with me for every single conversation, over 1,700 conversations over the more than 5 years that we've been doing this show. Hey, listen, Hunter, I want to stay on this theme for just a second. Also, just want to get Kyle's observation, because he hears a lot of the conversations that are offline that aren't being recorded, that are just conversations I'm having with my guests. But Hunter, one of the things, I got invited to a lot of events as a result of the Katrina anniversary, and I decided to only go to one. And the one that I went to was the one at Dave Dennis's house on the beach in Pascagoula, listen to me, on the beach in Pascagoula Jam, where we honored the National Guard, where we honored the National Guard. And what was great about it is we had mayors and supervisors and leaders from across the coast there. I got to see a lot of my old buddies from the commission, and it was great. I got to visit with Haley and Marcia. Had a great, beautiful visit with Marcia. Oh gosh, I got to see her at her best, and I wrote about her in my book, incidentally. But
it looked like she was pretty happy.
She looked good though. I mean, that's the thing. She really looked good, and she was happy. But she was special. She was more than a first lady to Coastal Mississippi. She was someone who cared deeply and made contributions. Most people have no idea what she did. She was here so many days. But anyway, one of the things I noticed, Dave's got this grand piano in his main area, and I got over behind it so I could get a view of the room. And I had Fofo was over there with me and 2 or 3 other people. But the thing that I noticed was this: as I sort of spanned the room, the number of young people in that room, young leaders, young business people, and it hit me that most of those people were not leaders after Katrina. They were just young people. Some of them were kids. Some of them weren't even here. That there's so many new. I mean, I should have taken a picture of what I was seeing, because while Haley talked about the story of Katrina and Dave made tremendous statements and the generals made great statements and so on, the majority of the people in the room were hearing some of those stories for the first time. They didn't, they weren't here. Now, if they read, I give them some credit, they read Haley Barber's book, America's Great Storm, then they have a feel for it. And I think any leader in Coastal Mississippi, before they can lead in a volunteer role anywhere, they should have to read that book, because that book tells a story they should know so that we don't repeat history. But I was shocked by that. You kind of shook your head, Jess, when I said that. But there's a lot of new leaders at the table that weren't here when Hurricane Katrina hit.
No, absolutely. I mean, that was definitely output, not only that, the state legislature, the board, and things as such, or they were young people like myself who just graduated college, but me being from the area, it was a lot different. Not necessarily, but being involved would be the certain aspect that I would certainly 100% agree with, Ricky.
Yeah, and Haley Barber and I talked about this too. Thad Cochran's no longer with us. Anthony DePazzi, former president of Mississippi Power, no longer with us. George Slogel, oh my gosh, what an icon, no longer with us. Billy McCoy, the Speaker of the House, who helped us get land-based gaming, no longer with us. And there are others. It's incredible. Time zooms by.
And certain people, have moved away or things as such. Like, for instance, my mother moved back to Texas, where she was originally from. There's another gentleman, I know Scotty Cuevas, who was big on that, is moved up to northern Pass Christiana, but, he's kind of focused on his oil company and things as such. There was another few from the Bay, of certain leaders over there that have moved on or passed on. One of those three things, and those people were very involved in the scenario with Katrina. And I'm not going to call out his name, but one of the state legislators that I saw from the coast put out a Facebook post about, that just like you said about only going to one event for Katrina because the remembrance wasn't as big of a deal to him as some of the current issues going on right now, especially with the insurance companies, the flood plains, the different scenarios that are going on right now, and how to make things better nationally. There needs to be some changes, and in the state also. So I certainly agreed with the way things went with that statement. So.
Well, look, here's, your mother, Senator Deborah Dawkins. I've enjoyed working with her in the community. She was as passionate as they come. And you're right. We're missing something, not having her here to be part of it. Incidentally, without naming names, I saw that post. And, I just thought it was kind of ill-timed, if you ask me, because, what I would say about the issue of insurance and mitigation, et cetera, would be you've had 20 years to work on this. Don't be pointing fingers at anybody right now. This belongs to anybody who's involved in a leadership role, that we hadn't put the same kind of mitigation in place around insurance that we put in place in Alabama. Incidentally, that effort in Alabama rose out of the oil recovery effort that I led. And we made that a major priority. And now, Alabama's got very, very significant mitigation in place that is, it's nationally being noticed today. But I think the reason for going to events, especially if you're a public official, is to create an opportunity to remind people why they have to stay safe when the next hurricane comes, because there are a lot of new people in this community. It's to remind people why it's important for us to work together as a region. This is a great opportunity to be able to do this. It's a great opportunity to celebrate our renewal after Hurricane Katrina. It's a great chance to see leaders who have toiled in the trenches for 20 years and celebrate with them our hard work. So, that's how I feel about that post.
Well, Ricky, I'm also going to put something into perspective about my own personal life. The fact is, where I live in one of the communities right down on the coastline, there are a bunch of new citizens that have sort of moved in from New Orleans or Memphis or Alabama, and they, of course, don't necessarily, it's not that they don't understand or have not been through that, but they don't acknowledge some of the things that are going on the beach line, where they have all like storage units inside their house and things as such. And everybody wonders, well, Hunter, why don't you have anything here? I have all of my important stuff up here in the office because my office is way north of the railroad track with the storm surge, because it's not if, it's when. It will.
No, we're going to get hit again. And when we get hit again, we're going to be way more resilient. That's one of the things we can celebrate. That's for sure.
Of course.
Hey, Cal.
And I'm not saying that. But,
yeah. Cal, when we come back on the other side, we'll pick up the latest in Hunter's world. But what stands out to you in these conversations we've been having about the region?
Mostly the fact that with all the conversations about pulling all the counties together, all of the different municipalities to form a bigger effort to draw in bigger business. There's been nobody say that it's a bad idea. Everybody agrees that it's a good idea, but it seems like no one wants to jump out in front and lead the reins and go against the grain. That's what I get out of it.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to do is make it so that it doesn't feel like they're going against the grain. In fact, I'm hoping what I'm doing is kind of greasing the skid and educating people about how we're going with the grain. We're dreaming big, and your point is well taken. I mean, those conversations we're having off the air when we're, in between breaks, before and after the shows, I don't remember a single person saying it's a bad idea. But I think we got big dreamers. We just need big pushers, and that's the reason I actually wrote that column at one point.
Yeah, it's kind of that, get 10 people in a line and say, you think this is a good idea, step forward on 3. And then at 2.5, everybody starts to lean forward, but nobody actually steps, but maybe one person. And that's what it seems like they're afraid of, is that one person's going to get hung out to dry by themselves and be the scapegoat, if you will. But everyone else is saying, yeah, it's a good idea, but I'm not ready to. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
I'm excited about Nathan Barrett from the Harrison County Board of Supervisors, and Tim Pierce. I had a great conversation with Jay Willis, the mayor of Pascagoula. I think there's a groundswell of support that's growing now. And I believe, too, that the Business Council is going to have to latch onto this. They're going to have to latch onto it and help kind of bring people together. And I honestly, to be quite honest with you, I don't know what they're waiting on. It's time to have this conversation and learn from what others are doing and moving. And every day we wait we're getting further behind. But it's a great, as Kyle normally does, it's a great point. I love the way he said that. Leaning, they're leaning, but they're afraid to take that step because they'll be out there alone. But, I'm out there. Let's all be in this together. Let's all step out there together. Nathan stepped out there. Tim stepped out there. I think Jay's willing to step out there. Woody Bailey stepped out yesterday. He supports this effort 100%. And so on and so on and so on and so on. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Hunter. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with my friend Hunter Dawkins from the Gazebo Gazette in coastal Mississippi. He's a jack of all trades. He's the owner and publisher. And when you own a small newspaper, you literally have to do it all. He's also a contributor to SuperTalk Mississippi News. And he does high school color. He's a jack of all trades. I honestly don't know how he does it. He covers New Orleans Saints, Southern Miss. How do you find time in the day, my friend?
Just started a podcast this last Sunday too, the HD Experience, and so I've got my good friend Jeff Clark, who from your days back at the Sun Herald.
Yeah,
Jeff Clark, who's now the executive director of the Harrison County Senior Services. Jeff's doing a great job, and Pass Christian just sided with the county because they had to decrease their senior services opportunity because of the budget and the lack of money they were making out of that. So they sided with Jeff and with the senior services, and he's doing a great job. And he's also contributing some articles here and there. And he and I got together and decided we were going to do a podcast together. And so the HD Experience every Sunday. So
I'm excited to hear that. I like him a lot. He's been on my show. He spent some time after he left the Sun Herald in various places, including the Mississippi Aquarium, and did a really terrific job. He even had, some health battles along the way that he's emerged from. So it's great to see him. I actually I think I saw him at a basketball game last year. I've only been it's interesting because he joined the Sun Herald long after I left there, but I followed him closely because he had the podcast at the Sun Herald that was doing really well. And, he's always shown kind of an innovative way about him. And the other thing is he does a great job of building the sources. And he's a big music enthusiast. He's introduced his son to that, and has made friends with many he was actually in the industry at one point and made a lot of relationships. So yeah, it's cool. I'm glad to hear that you guys are working together on that. So it's let's spend just a second. Katrina has come and gone, but it did give us all an opportunity to think about the important leaders, and I think none more important than Haley Barbour. What he brought to the table after Katrina. I was honored to write the foreword to his book and had the chance to visit with him on this show last Thursday. And, we kind of talked about it all, but, what did you hear in past, I would say in Pasquisham, but beyond, because the Gazebo Gazette goes much further than that. You continue to grow, and I'm excited for you, but what did you hear?
Well, I had obviously I put out a story with one of my good reporters, Isabel Jansen, who wrote this story in Past Christian. They had the remembrance. It was during actually the high school football game in Past Christian that night, the Oyster Bowl that the Gazebo Gazette sponsors. So I didn't have the opportunity to go to the Katrina event. It was scheduled for 6, but I believe it was a little bit later. But there was Lynn Fitch, the Attorney General. We had Dane Maxwell from the USDA, and there was a bunch of other state legislators and really delegation down there. General Joe Spraggins from MDMR gave, who was a very prominent figure in Harrison County at that time as the EMA, really talked a lot about, what the community had been through. And of course, this paper was founded on the fact of, it was a Katrina paper. Really, Evelina Burnett, now she came from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the now only digital Atlanta Constitution, but she came down here and really started, a new cycle in her life and in the newspaper. And it's always been a very big issue, at least down here, remembrance, and that's something that Pastor Shane was definitely behind. Long Beach did a great vigil that was really, really nice that Mayor Pierce and I had talked about, and then of course Mayor Keating and Governor Reeves down at Jones Park on Friday morning. That was a very important piece. It was more of the solidarity, the showing the resilience, like you spoke about on the coast, and at least I think that was a very important thing for a lot of people outside, as you have said earlier. People that were not here or that didn't know about it hear the effect, and that's something that's very important to show the community, and it's very important to show the state and the region. So.
Hey, listen, I wasn't there, but I did watch it. It was simulcast on Mississippi Public Broadcasting, and it was great. I mean, I wanted to see, like, for example, our friend Steve Azar was there and sang One Mississippi with school students from St. James Elementary, and my granddaughter Riley Williams was one of those in attendance to sing, and it was so awesome seeing my granddaughter sing with my good friend Steve Azar. Her grandfather on her father's side, Keith Williams, and Steve were at Delta State at the same time together and played ball, and they knew each other extremely well from those days. So Keith was there, as was Keith Jr. and of course Keith Jr. and my daughter Tori, their daughter Riley is the one who sang. But it was great to see that.
And Steve, and I believe it was Keith, I'm not exactly sure, they sang the national anthem the next day, Saturday morning, for the state USM game in Hattiesburg.
Yeah, it actually wasn't. Who it was the guy who plays, I want to say bongos or whatever in the band for Steve, in Steve's actual band, who's the backup singer. At one point, Steve told the story. At one point, he used to have women singers. And I think they formed their own band at some point and went off for bigger and greater things. And this guy, I wish I could remember his name, but it's just right on the tip of my tongue. But I can see him. But he said, "You know what? You want to do backup?" Because the guy sang really good, and so he became his backup singer. There's a great documentary that was done called There's Something in the Water. People can go to YouTube and look it up. There's Something in the Water. And it's about Steve working with the Kingsmen, who were the backup. That was the band for B.B. King. And so in the, it's about this album that they did together. And they're actually in the juke joint that's adjacent to the B.B. King Museum. And at one point, interestingly enough, it's a great documentary. It's called Something in the Water. And it's all about them doing this, cutting this album in this juke joint. And at one point, one of the members of the band, B.B. King's band that's doing backup on this band for Steve's album, actually walks over to the museum and gets one of the famous guitars, and they tune it up and actually play it on this album. But anyway, you get to know some of these characters, and it was that backup singer who sung with Steve at the USM game on that following Saturday. But so many interesting stories to tell. But yeah, there's Something in the Water. I really want to highly recommend people go to YouTube and look it up. It's just a cool story about the Mississippi Delta and the Kingsmen that backed up B.B. King and Steve's relationship with them. It's really cool. Very cool. And you get to see, what the juke joints meant to the Mississippi Delta and the role they played in the music scene of blues. Good Lord. Big deal, isn't it, Hunter?
Big deal. Of course, you see the recently filmed Sinner, that came out, the horror movie about the vampires in the juke joint in Greenville. That was definitely an interesting, but that whole kind of idea, that mechanism of storytelling, it's very important. So.
Good stuff. Anyway, so how are things going in your world? How's your business doing? And your tax sale business continues to grow dramatically, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The tax collector, Sharon Nash Barnett, and the Harrison County Chancery Clerk, Angela Thrash, have always been very good to me, and have always wanted to remain local. And they, of course, have discussed things with me, and I've put things together. We don't just, that with that relationship that we've built, we don't really just talk and say, okay, well, you're going to do this. No, it's a very structured things. I have to show them how things are going to look and then put things out there. And we have really gotten to be good, have good friendships with each other and developed, the local source. That's what the community likes. And that's not only, that, Ricky, but SuperTalk. They know that they've been big on providing community local sources. And that's something that I've really appreciated.
Well, that's good. I mean, the legal and tax revenue, tax sale are you can say it however you want to say it, but that county and city relationship you have for legals is really important. It's important to you as a small publisher, and it's important to the cities and counties that use you as their source. And I'm proud of you for doing that. I mean, I remember at the Sun Herald, it was a huge part of our revenue. You looked at classified revenue when the legal revenue started to flow in at certain times of the year. It was a big deal. We were running lots of pre-runs on our press to be able to get it done. When we come back on the other side, we'll have our final segment with Hunter Dawkins. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with Hunter Dawkins, the publisher and owner of the Gazebo Gazette, a contributor to SuperTalk Mississippi News. He also does color for Gulfport High Games, who was off this past week. But Hunter, man, one of the interesting things I want to make sure we cover is you start to look at the budgeting process for each of the cities. So you always have like new councils coming in, and in some cases you got new mayors coming in, and there's a lot of like forming and storming that's going on right now as they learn each other and try to figure out how they're going to go forward progressively and so on. But one of the issues is they're all dealing with some budget shortfalls. They're having to cut and consider raising taxes and all of that. Things are a bit soft right now, aren't they?
Yeah, well, especially Pasco Shan, they are going to have to raise taxes. That's pretty much the formidable amount. Not necessarily sure whether it be point 0.3 in mills or point 0.5 in mills, they're going to have to raise taxes. And actually, they have a budget planned session coming up here too soon. But their discussion is the public hearing, as you know, Ricky. What do the constituents think? And of course, from a conservative state, most of the time people don't like the raising of taxes. However, to make up for what has been left from the past administration, I'm not going to name that or anything as such about that, but there are intricacies that went out that, that was a lot of the reason why the past Krishan, the people campaigned for the candidates campaign, especially the mayor candidate campaign, Kenny Torgerson, on the fact that he wanted to bring Pasquarshand back to being the city that it was, being not having to go off and pay bills for this, that, or the other. And they are finding that there's a lot more bills left over that they didn't know were there that are there now. And they have, of course, called Shad White's office to kind of do some work with them to clean everything up.
Yeah, I talked with Ken incidentally at the Dave Dennis event last Thursday night, and he said they're working through it. It's they've got some work to do, but it's unfortunate they have that challenge to deal with on top of the budget challenges. And my sense is he's confidently working through it. They'll work through it and figure it out, and they've got some tough decisions they're going to have to make. But they're not alone. I mean, Biloxi's making tough decisions. Gulfport's making tough decisions. Long Beach, everybody's having to make tough decisions.
Well, the problem in Gulfport, you see, is not necessarily that they're going to raise taxes. They need to kind of be on the same page with all the councilmen, because from what I heard, there's been this release of, okay, well, we're going to raise the taxes. Well, a number of the councilmen were not necessarily sure that they were going to raise taxes, and then there was a divided platform between councilmen. And because one of the councilmen, Ron Rowland, is not available yet, he's still recovering from his accident a few weeks ago, and that that divided line is really causing some problems, at least from their level. But as you know, your good friend Hugh Kidding, he'll probably be there to take care of business at least the best that he can.
Yeah, I had a chance to chat with him as well. And Hugh, as I mentioned, when you got a lot of new council members and you're a new mayor, you're learning each other. There's a lot of work that has to be done. But I think Hugh, being someone who doesn't have an ulterior motive, he's been city lawyer for so many years. He's seen it all. And I think he'll calmly work through it and get people aligned eventually around the realities of the budget. I mean, that's kind of where they are, and I think they'll get there. But he was, he said, I have confidence in the process, and we'll work it forward, and I'm sure he will. And
The good part of Pasquarshand, at least, most of these aldermen, they've known each other for 20, 30 years. They've known each other for their life put. And that being said, they can generally, with the new administration, can work together, at least with the new board of aldermen too as well. But cities like, Gulfport and Biloxi, there's a little bit of push here and there, but they usually generally work things out before the October deadline with the budget.
Yeah. Hey, real quick. You saw that I posted on the Ricky Matthews Facebook page a concern I have that some casinos are fighting online sports betting. And it reminds me, as I wrote, that it's like newspapers fighting the internet. That hasn't turned out too well for those who fought it. You've got to embrace it. And so what's happened as a result of us not passing a bill here in Mississippi, we've seen proliferation around it. It's not good because we're losing. We're losing significant revenue, tax revenue and otherwise, to neighboring states. It's something we got to get our head around. We have to have all our tools in our quiver to be successful, don't we?
Well, yeah, and especially the casinos who have been fighting against this, I think they don't realize this is what's going to help make them more money. And that's the important thing.
Yeah, well, we got a chance to, if we in the newspaper industry had a chance to literally decide what our relationship with the internet was going to be, we'd have jumped all over it. They've got a law here that will define that you have to do business with a brick and mortar casino in Mississippi. You have to have a relationship with them. I like that bill. I think that's a good approach. Otherwise, if we don't have it, people are going to get scammed, which is one of the things that I mentioned in this note. And the revenue is going to leave, like Barry Regula said from Hollywood recently, how much revenue they've lost already as a result of Louisiana approving it. It's been a pleasure, my friend. We look forward to next time.
Take care of yourself.
You bet. This has been Hunter Dawkins. See you tomorrow.